The Dragonback series by Timothy Zahn. Book 2, Dragon and Soldier. Chapter 27. Cautiously, Jack sniffed the air. His own nose couldn't find anything other than simple, basic smoke. Are you sure?
I have tasted many such poisons before,
Draco said, his voice even more urgent.
Come!
Jack looked back at the computer, a tight feeling in the pit of his stomach. No, this couldn't be happening. Not twice on the same job. To have come this close, again, only to get chased away before he could finish it?
Jack!
Draco's called. And then, like one of Uncle Virgil's dope slaps on the side of his head, the obvious answer struck him. If there wasn't time to pick and choose what he wanted, he'd just take everything. 30 seconds, he promised Dracos, grabbing another tube and jamming it into the receptacle. Make sure the coast is clear, he added, keen for a complete copy of the Shamshir's rival mercenary data lists. And then, with a terrific concussion, the whole building seemed to lift itself up and drop back onto the ground. What was that? Jack yelled. At least, he thought he yelled it. With his ears ringing from the blast, he couldn't even hear his own voice. Dracos was at his side, mouthing something. What? Jack shouted back. In answer, the dragon hooked the claws of one of his forepaws onto Jack's sleeve and tugged, pulling him towards the door. Wait a second, Jack said, reaching over and popping the data tube. Just in time. Even as he pulled the tube free, the building's power shut down, taking the computer with it. Dracos tugged again. Right, Jack agreed, shoving the data tube deep into an inner pocket. Let's go! He fully expected there to be another blast or two along the way, but they reached the outer door without that happening. Jack peered outside, started to step through the doorway, and found himself yanked back inside by the claws still hooked into his sleeve as a dark aircraft roared past overhead. Reflexively, he dropped into a crouch. Uh-oh, he muttered.
We are under attack!
He heard Dracos' voice distantly through his slowly recovering hearing. No kidding, Sherlock, Jack said, looking carefully around the door jamb. In the flickering light of the burning hut, the Lynx transport he'd arrived in seemed intact, or at least as intact as it had been when he'd left it. Beyond it, he tensed. Beyond the Lynx, where Tango 5 Zulu's borrowed flying turtle had been, there was nothing but a gaping crater.
There!
Draco said, pointing a claw.
They are there!
Jack pointed and looked right along where Dracos was pointing, and in the near distance he could see the shape of the flying turtle scooting across the sky. So Allison had managed to get the thing started and into the air, and not a borrowed second too soon either from the looks of it. Who else is around? He asked.
I can hear 2 Shamshir fighter craft,
Draco said.
Both are in pursuit of Allison's vehicle.
Okay, Jack said, getting back to his feet again. Let's see if we can make it to the Lynx.
It is damaged,
Dracos reminded him. Would you rather walk away from poison gas?
Point,
Dracos conceded, putting a paw on Jack's hand and slithering up his sleeve.
Let us go!
Again, they made it across the open area without drawing fire. Apparently, none of Lieutenant Q-Ball's men wanted him badly enough to stick around near the burning hut. We're not going to get very far, he warned, glancing at the fuel reading as he dropped into the pilot's seat. But we should at least make it to the woods. The comm beeped. Montana? Allison's voice came. Jack flipped the switch. I'm here, he confirmed. You all right? Oh, we're just sweetness and light out here, she growled back. Sorry, but we had to pull out. If I can shake these 2 birds, I'll circle back and get you. No, don't, Jack said. You just stay ahead of them and head for the hills. I can get out on my own. But... And suddenly, outside the windscreen, the ground flashed with light. Jack leaned forward over the control board, trying to see what had happened. One of the Shamshir fighters had become an airborne fireball. Jack blinked. No, not even Allison. Not even Allison and Jami together, hotshot teenage mercenaries that they were, could have taken out a professional combat pilot. Could they? And then, even as his brain tried to make sense of it, the second fighter veered away from its prey. It cut hard to the left, its guns blazing full power, and exploded into a fireball of its own. Jack! A familiar voice called. Jack felt his breath go out of him in a whoosh, his muscles going limp with relief. He'd forgotten all about Uncle Verge. I'm here, Uncle Verge, he called back. On the ground in the links near the burning hut. Leave the flying turtle alone. They're on our side. Anyone else in the area? Looks like they've got 3 more fighters coming in from the south, Uncle Verge reported. Still a few minutes away. Pretty amateurish for supposed professionals, if you want my humble opinion. I weren't expecting to have to fight around here, Jack said, gazing thoughtfully out the windscreen into the distance. An idea was starting to form in the back of his mind. I'm coming in to get you, Uncle Verge said. Did you know that fire is putting out Zancrene gas? Yeah, I did, thanks, Jack said, keen on the engines. On second thought, I'll meet you 2 miles west of the city. There's no need for that, Jack lad, Uncle Verge protested. I wouldn't trust that flying cattle car of yours farther than I can bounce a barge. Don't worry, the Zancrene is mostly blowing north. I wasn't worried about the Zancrene, Jack told him, lifting the transport into the air. And relax, this thing will get me far enough. Jack, lad! Look, I know what I'm doing, Jack interrupted him. Allison, you still there? Still here, she confirmed. Thanks for the assist. Like I said, I have friends, Jack said. Look, I'd ask you all aboard, but we really don't have the space. I'm afraid you'll have to find your own way off Sunright. That's okay, she assured him. We'll manage. The Edge will be watching for you, he warned. Like I said, we'll manage, she said. I have friends too. See you. The comm clicked off. Yeah, Jack muttered, her last words tingling across his mind. I have friends too. He headed off into the night. Directly ahead, the dim lights of the mine buildings loomed against the darkness. The mine that had sparked all this trouble in the first place. The mine that had trapped both the Agri and the Parapins into devil's bargains with greedy mercenaries. The jackpot both the Shamshir and Wynyard's Edge were playing their deadly little games for. As Uncle Virgil would have said, it was time to take the jackpot off the table. He lined up the transport's nose on the entrance to the main mining building. Dracos, you said there were some grenades back there?
Yes,
Dracos said.
9 of them.
I don't suppose you know how to rig a delay fuse on something like that.
Explosives are not to be dealt with lightly or casually,
the dragon said, his voice starting to sound suspicious.
I am not trained with these particular devices.
Never mind then, Jack said. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. Can you get them out of the locker and line them up along the floor? Straight down the middle should do just fine. Dracos' head lifted up from Jack's shoulder.
Jack, what is it you intend to do?
Jack said nothing and nodded toward the mine buildings. The Shamshir want the mine, he said. So do the Wynyard's Edge. If you believe Lieutenant Cueball, that is. What do you suppose they'd do if the mine wasn't there anymore? Dracos pondered a moment.
Those who care only for its wealth would leave this world.
He twisted his head around to look squarely into Jack's eyes.
But this is not your property, Jack,
he added.
You have no right to choose its destruction.
Not even to save people caught in a war none of them want? Jack countered. Come on, Kadar warrior, let's hear those ethics of yours. Is the wealth of a mine more important than the people who own it?
The people are, of course, more important,
the dragon said, his voice oddly sad.
But there must be another way.
There isn't, Jack said firmly. Look, I trust you in the warrior stuff. Trust me in this, okay? Dracos bounded from Jack's collar, landing on the deck behind him.
Very well, he said reluctantly. If there is no other way, then let us do it.
Jack smiled tightly. The Kadar poet warrior had done his part of the job. Now it was time for the human con artist to do his. Just line up those grenades, he said. I'll do the rest. The main doors were wide and tall, designed to let large ore-carrying vehicles in and out. They were also built pretty strong. Fortunately, the Lynx was built even stronger. With a crash of breaking wood and the screech of torn metal, it broke through the doors and rumbled into the main building beyond. How are you doing? Jack shouted over the crunch of demolished support beams and the wall siding as he drove the Lynx inward toward the tall tower that stood over the mine opening itself.
I am nearly done,
Dracos called back. Good, Jack said. Brace yourself. And with a final thunderous crash, he slammed the transport through the lower part of the tower and settled to the floor squarely on top of the shaft leading down into the ground. We're here, Jack announced, shutting down off the engines and sliding out of his seat. Let's make tracks. Dracos looked up from the neat row of grenades he had laid out from the rear of the compartment to just beyond Jack's seat. Pardon? Let's get out of here, Jack clarified. Come aboard. With Dracos on his back, Jack picked his way through the splintered wood and other debris outside. The SNA was waiting just outside the entrance, bobbing slightly on its lifters with an air of worried impatience. Come on, lad, come on, Uncle Verge urged as Jack ran up the ramp. Those fighters will be here in a minute. Then let's give them something to light their way, Jack said as he raced to the cockpit and slid into the pilot's seat. I want a quick laser burst straight into the hole we made. Targeted where? Uncle Verge asked. Targeted on the back of the transport we made the hole with, Jack said, doing a quick check of the SNA's weapon systems. The transport? Uncle Verge asked, sounding confused. But... Never mind, Jack said. You just aim, I'll fire.
We should move back,
Dracos murmured.
The blast could be considerable.
Good point, Jack agreed, keying the SNA into a fast backward drift. Everyone ready? I suppose, Uncle Verge said. Dracos didn't answer. Good, Jack said. Here goes. The lasers flickered, and he held his breath. If this didn't work... And then, from the entrance came a flash of return light, then the rolling flicker of fire. The rest of the Lynx's fuel had caught. That should do it, Jack said, pulling the SNA around and heading for the sky. Let's grab some distance before the grenades go. The grenades? Uncle Verge echoed. Jack, lad! And then the grenades went. It was even more spectacular than Jack had expected. The sides of the main building blew out as a ring of fire sliced horizontally outward in all directions. The tower, directly above the explosion, shot probably half a dozen feet straight up, then toppled over. It landed on one of the two side buildings, crushing through its roof. A few seconds after it had begun, it was over. The buildings had collapsed into shattered ruin, with everything flammable and then burning furiously. It was like one of the triumphal bonfires Jack had read about, except that there was no one here celebrating anything. Maybe the Agri who had worked so hard to create the mine would thank him. Eventually. He took a deep breath. Well, he said to no one in particular, I guess that's that. It is indeed, Uncle Verge agreed, sounding rather awestruck himself. Never let it be said that you do things halfway, Jack lad. Jack pursed his lips. Maybe. Maybe not. For now, he could only hope he'd accomplish what he'd set out to do. We'd better get out of here before those fighters arrive, he said, reaching for the controls. You with me, Dracos?
I am here,
the dragon said softly.
Yes, let us go.